Hey, Linux fans, Rob here, and I've got Rocco with me. Rocco, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me back, Rob.
Hey, back for more punishment.
Hmm.
We talked last week about different desktops and had some good discussion there. I had a good time doing that. Hope you did.
Oh, I had a great time doing it, man.
So
Yep,
we,
talking about my favorite desktops.
that's right. That's right. We had some feedback, and there's lots of desktops to choose from. So this time around, we're going to just chat about GNOME or GNOME, whichever way you prefer to pronounce it, and then we'll talk about Budgie, and then Cinnamon after that. Sound good?
It sounds good to me, man.
So we we took. Let's see. You took a look at GNOME. Is GNOME or GNOME, and I'm going to bounce back and forth. Sometimes I call it GNOME, sometimes I call it GNOME. So uh, pardon me on that. But is that a desktop that you've spent much time with?
It's not a desktop that I've spent much time with, and this isn't really going to be a review or anything. It's just going to be us talking about it. So it's one of those desktop environments that I have installed in the past and just looked at it, and it was different than what I'm used to. So it's like, it's really not for me, and I never really gave it a whole lot of extra thought about it and just went past it. So I was pleasantly surprised when I installed it and dove into it to see what you could actually do with it.
Right. Well, for me, kind of like you, the first time that I got a real look, I will say, at version, three and up. So what are we at now? 3.22, I think, or something like
Yeah.
that. It was kind of my first reaction as well was, I was interested to see kind of what was new, but once I got past that, I didn't spend as much time with it really as I should have. It was later when I started to get into some of the extensions, some of the GNOME extensions and how that's all set up, which
Well, to
allowed
be
me to
honest
go
with
in.
you, that's
Yeah,
what makes GNOME that much better. I mean, the extensions add so much to it that, the base GNOME that you're looking at is just basically, Ubuntu with the GNOME shell on the top. But the extensions add so much more functionality that that's where the diamonds in the rough come out, where it makes it very
exactly.
nice.
It took it to a level for me that allowed me to get in and really set it up the way I, like to have things set up a certain way. I'm weird that way, but
No, I don't
you know,
think you're
the
weird that way. I think everybody likes to have their stuff set up a certain way. I know I do.
the ability to set up like the menu, on the panel and things like that. And then
Well, that's what that's what turns some people off from them is because the panel isn't customizable. There isn't much there except you see you get what you see,
right.
but the extensions allow you to customize that. So
Yeah, and then the tweak tool. If you've gotten into the tweak tool, you're able to get in there and move the plank or whatever you want to call it to the bottom and really start to get in and tweak and set it up and that kind of thing. Once I started digging deeper there, I thought, hey, this is really a desktop environment that I could get used to because the polish is there. It feels modern, but there's one thing that bugs me, and that's the giant touch friendly menu list for apps.
well, I'll tell you what, it'll probably be a hit or miss for people because that's really without the extensions, that's the only basically app menu that you have. So you're stuck with that. All right. But um, for me, the desktop, the way it's set up with the panel at the top, it actually works for me. Like I was sitting there looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, well, I could actually run with this. You know what I mean? Um, I don't
Right.
mind the full screen menu. I think the icons could be a little bit smaller. I mean, okay, I'm a guy that likes big icons, but I mean, they're a little big. So, I mean, I don't mind the full screen. They could be a little bit smaller, but it had a nice. As a matter of fact, one of the extensions for GNOME was a menu that was actually it was like a quarter screen menu that you could get to either that full screen with the
Ah,
app menus, or you could just have like it almost looked like the Mate Mint menu,
Okay.
where you had favorites and whatnot. So yeah, like I said, it had things to it that I'm looking. I'm like, wow, that's pretty nice. I could do that.
You know,
So
yeah, for me, I think it's going to be a desktop that I continually go back to and keep tabs on as far as any changes and updates. And really, I need to spend more time with extensions as well, because you just mentioned one there that I hadn't heard of or hadn't had a opportunity to check out. I had 3 or 4 extensions that I'd always go to, and so those things are always going to be added and changed, and so without a doubt, it's one to keep your eye on.
well, okay, for me, it's not one that I'm probably going to run on a regular basis, but it's one that I could run and not, what I mean, like obviously you have your preferences, you have your choices, but I could run with that without a problem.
Yep. Yep. I think I could too. I think we said in the last video, if you had to run just one, could you get by with that or something to that effect?
Right.
And with GNOME, I could, without a doubt. I could see that I could go in and make it work and enjoy using it. So, what
Yep.
about Budgie? Have you spent much time with Budgie?
Well, actually installed Solus yesterday, and I hadn't done much with it. I watched many reviews on it, and it's not something that I actually installed. And then I also installed the Budgie Remix as well to see what the differences were.
Ah,
So it is a modern looking desktop, and Solus itself with the Budgie desktop, kind of with the way the software is set up, where you get what's in there. You can't like add everything let's put it this way, everything that you find is not going to be in the Solus Software Center,
right.
which is a kind of, it's a great idea. It's a great concept to have a single, a based operating system built from scratch. That is a great concept. As far as a daily driver, I don't know if I could run with it like that. So, but I did install the Budgie Remix, and that is basically Budgie on top of Ubuntu. And that was actually, I mean, there's not much difference in the desktops, but I could run with that without a problem as well. That was a pretty nice desktop. The start menu. See, there's the Windows days coming back.
That's strike one. Strike one.
The app menu is pretty basic. There's not much customization to it, but there is subtle differences between Budgie Remix and Solus. And one of those is where the icons that goes by your most recent history as far as what icons are there, and it picks up and brings them to the top, the ones you use most often. Well,
Ah,
in Solus, it's categorized. So like you'll have, like, say you use Google Chrome a lot, it'll be up at the top, but it'll be under a internet heading. But in Budgie Remix, that's not the case. It just brings that up to the top,
yeah.
the Chrome icon. So there's little subtle differences, but there's a software welcome screen that looks almost identical to Ubuntu Mate
Huh.
in the Budgie Remix, which makes it really nice.
Man, you've got me. You've got me interested in Budgie Remix
I'm
now.
telling you,
Remix now. I'm
you
gonna have
should
to-
check it out. I mean, they just announced the other day that they're going to be an official Ubuntu flavor, so it'll be rebranded as Ubuntu Budgie. But the Budgie remixes are there to download, and man, like I said, that software center alone, and in the software center itself, it not only does the normal updates and drivers and all that stuff, but it has a little thing in there to reset. Like if you mess up the Budgie panels, you can reset them to the default settings, which isn't
That's
that isn't an option on everything.
no. That's nice. That's nice. For me, the Budgie desktop as a whole, I like the majority of the way everything works within Budgie. It's a simple, for me, I'm more of a desktop user. I've got a tablet or hybrid device, touchscreen hybrid tablet PC.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I could, there's times when using that as a tablet, then I'm not a desktop user. I'm using it more like a tablet. But, 90% of the time, I gravitate towards desktop, use. And to me, Budgie is ideal for that. It's, to me, it's certainly intended to be that way. And there's one thing I can't get over, though, and that is the menu list. It's extremely simple. It's quick search, all of that, but they could do more with it. So, for example, you go to the category, and if it's a long list of applications, you're going to have to scroll. You
Right.
can't adjust the window size of the app menu, and that's nitpicky. I know it is.
No, but
And
these
I
are
mentioned,
things that make or break you using the operating system too. So it may sound like it's nitpicky, but if that's your preference, then you're not going to use that. And the whole goal of it is to make it so that people use it.
right, right, and it's something that for me, I've got it in my head now. So every time I use it, I can't not see it. It's like somebody points out a scratch on your car, and
Hmm.
you didn't see it before, and now every time you walk outside, that's all you can see.
Well, there should be, believe there should be at least favorites set. Like I am not I know the new technology likes to think for you, and I know that recent history thing where it brings the things up to the top is okay, but I'm a, guy that likes things where I expect them to be. So I expect to open the menu and see the programs that I want to see where I want to see them. I don't want them to move around, so I have to look for them. So I
Right.
think there should be the option to have a favorites where they're set. Um, right there. But the other thing that was in that welcome screen was the option to do the material design theme, like the
Mm.
Google cross-platform material design theme. And if you switch to it, it actually switches the theme all over, and it basically, you were talking about the laptop or the netbook. It actually makes it better for that because the close buttons get really big.
Ah.
It makes it mobile friendly, I should say.
Yep. Yep. Well, yeah, I definitely want to take a look at that. There's back to just kind of Budgie and the desktop. They've simplified a lot of things. So if you've got icons in your top panel, you can simply left click and drag those icons and rearrange them easier than a lot of desktop environments. KDE, for example, you've got to right click and go to settings, and then you can go in and control the icons.
Right.
Um, their applets and everything um, are, classy looking. You click on one, I mean, it pops right up. And now, but for me, the big winner for Budgie, and the thing I appreciate the most about Budgie, is the Raven side panel.
That is nice.
Yep.
That is really nice. That has pretty much everything you need for quick access to settings. Like, for example, we were talking before about the sound settings. That has the output and the input sound settings right in it as soon as you open it. And as soon as you
Hmm.
click the sound system, whatever you're looking for. I mean, I have two headsets, a microphone, speakers, and built-in audio on the monitors. So I switch between the sound often, and I can be playing a video and switch the sound, and it switches immediately without having to restart the app or restart the song. Or it has a lot of settings in it, as far as changing the themes. It is a very nice sidebar.
It certainly is. And I'll tell you this, um, it adds, to me, it adds a level of sophistication and modern feel and everything. You feel like, hey, this is something that's, this is modern. This is, this isn't something from 1997. It's
I won't
it
bust on any other operating systems or desktop environments that we've done before, but it definitely gives you that modern feel.
right, right. Um, but yeah, and then you can get in and control just about every aspect of your theme and everything.
Hmm.
From your font size to your icons to the overall theme. And that's the other thing I wanted to mention too. It's little things, and I say this in other videos. It truly is little things a lot of times to me that stand out and show where people are kind of paying attention.
Yep.
And the theming in Budgie, whatever theme you apply, seems to apply in a uniform way that just makes, to me, it gives it an edge. It's very, very nice. However, whatever they've done there, whatever mojo they've put in place to make the theming apply the way it has, it just seems to work extremely well throughout.
Well, I'm a theme changing kind of guy, almost like the whole distro hopping thing. So I change themes constantly. And well, not constantly, but I'll run with one for a week or two and then I'll switch it, or maybe a month. It depends on how good it is. But yeah, that is a plus that you don't see in other desktop environments, that it would apply globally without the little imperfections. And,
Right.
it may seem like that's, nitpicking, but you know what? Those little things bother me. I know that.
Yeah. Well, when you spend time looking at it and working with it and that kind of thing, you appreciate it. Those little things you do appreciate. And, Budge never felt, from a speed standpoint, it's never felt like a speed demon to me, but it certainly never felt slow to me either.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've watched other videos on it, and there have been other people that have mentioned that it's a slower operating system. It's not a sleek, fast operating system, say like XFCE. Okay, but when I did Budgie Solus, I started up. It was 570 megabytes of RAM. All right, now when I did Budgie Remix, now I had installed a few things, done a few things. I started running at 1.7 gigabytes of RAM.
Really?
Now, yeah. Now, so it's not, I wouldn't classify it as a sleek, lean operating system. It's leaning towards the heavier side. Now, that may be due to my specific system, with, the system setup that I have.
Yep.
But it is, and the way I look at it is a on the heavier side, but I have 8 gigabytes of RAM. So when you buy a car, you don't buy a car to sit it in the garage. You buy a car to drive it. So
Right.
as long as you have enough resources, it doesn't bother me personally that it took up that much RAM because I have 8 gigabytes. It was
Sure.
nowhere near crashing the system or anything like that. So is it going to run on older hardware? It may not run as quickly on older hardware, but for me, it ran perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, it didn't feel like a speed demon, but at the same time, it certainly never felt slow or bogged down in any way. And it's another desktop that I think maybe again, I'll go back to the app menu. I would get used to it, I'm sure. But if there were ways to go in and tweak that and scale up if you could just increase the window size,
Right.
that kind of thing. But again, it's a desktop that I could run every day and enjoy using and have no problems with.
Yeah, it absolutely is something that I could run. It has that modern feel to it that it would satisfy the I don't know what you would call it, inside of me, to have something that looks nice and still be productive. So I could run it easily without a problem.
All right. Well, I'm going to toss this one to you here. This will be a softball, so if you want to throw it back hard, you can. Uh, if you had to choose between GNOME, I'm going to give you three choices: GNOME, GNOME, or Budgie.
Well, I'm going to say, geez, that's a tough one, to be honest with you, because they both have some nice stuff to them. I mean, I would probably, just because of it being up and coming and because of it, I would probably pick the Budgie. That would be me.
I'm torn there. I'm probably going to lean to GNOME simply because I feel like there's more potential there with future extensions. And I also feel like there's a lot going on there. There's going to be, I think, a lot more to come. That's just my feeling. I don't have anything to back that up. That's why I think I would probably lean to GNOME. So,
that's why Linux is great, because of choice.
That's right. Well, our next one is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, and that's the Cinnamon desktop.
Well, I used to run Cinnamon a long time ago. I mean, for me, a long time ago is like a few months. So that was my desktop. That was my daily driver. And I ended up switching to Plasma when it came out because I wanted to see what it was like. And then I just fell in love with it and whatnot. But the Cinnamon desktop is probably, I would say, right underneath KDE as far as being able to customize it. Now, obviously, it's not as in depth as KDE, but it is customizable. And when you go in and all of the theming, well, I installed Linux Mint 18. So Linux Mint always does a great job of making it look cohesive, making everything, personalizing it. So it makes it look great. The only problem that I always had with Cinnamon was the menu. And I am not a big fan of the Cinnamon menu that's in there. So I would always install an applet to add another menu, a different menu. And there was another menu called configurable menu before, and it had so many options that you could install or not install, you could switch to, like it would mimic the Whisker menu or the Windows 7 menu, a full screen menu. It would mimic every menu out there. It could mimic it and make it look like that. But unfortunately, with the updates to Cinnamon, Cinnamon kept getting updated, and the applets kind of lacked. So you're trying to run Cinnamon with these applets that you normally run, you get used to, and it ends up making Cinnamon unstable, crashing. And that's part of the reason why I ended up switching to KDE as well, was because, I was running it and it was fine. It was great, but it kept crashing on me. And that was because, like I said, I was trying to use applets that were breaking it basically. So then the Stark menu was there, and I tried that one. And long story short, that went out of date too. And now there's another one that somebody forked the Stark menu. It's called Nico Kraus on GitHub. He forked it, and it's now called CinXP Stark menu. And it is probably the best menu on Cinnamon to date. And
wow.
It is. It mimics the Windows 7 menu. And you have two choices. You can either do the Stark menu or the Mate menu, and it just basically flips things around. But it's customizable. You can change pretty much everything in it. And those are the things, like we were talking about GNOME, that make the operating system that much better. Cinnamon is already a good distro, a good desktop environment. But when you add things like that, and you get a menu like that, that's the icing on the cake.
Well, I like you. There's so much that I like about the Cinnamon desktop environment. I mean, I remember, the first time I installed Mint, and I'm trying to think back what version. Anyway, it doesn't matter at this point. And I remember thinking, all right, this could be it here, just based on the desktop experience. I never was, though, like you. I never was. With the application launcher. And there's nothing really in particular that I can say why. It just never did the trick for me. And I never really spent the time and dug deep enough to get into some of these applets that you're talking about. Now I'm intrigued, especially about the new one that you just mentioned.
Well, that app menu has hardly,
go ahead.
The application launcher, the default one you have, has hardly any settings to it whatsoever. So you can't switch it around. And if you don't like the setup the way it is, there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm-hmm. And for someone like myself who loves to tweak and tinker around and change things, that's a roadblock for me.
Yeah, it is.
It's a challenge too, though. Sometimes that's when you go digging and you find these cool things like you just mentioned here to be able to change that around. But the other aspects, like you said, with the customization, you can move the panel to the top, to the bottom, and there's so much you can do with theming and all the other settings. It's just a shame that you're locked in that way. And I like, again, the file manager, I think, is very powerful. It's a very good file manager.
Yep.
I mean, it seems like it's all there, but I want to ask you this, because I have run the Cinnamon desktop outside of Linux Mint, and what I found was, it was laggy. I remember on the distro that I was running, Cinnamon was very laggy. And I think I made a remark about it or something, and someone messaged back and said, Yeah, I've experienced that as well. That if you're not running Cinnamon and Linux Mint, you're going to notice some lag. Have you ever
Well,
experienced
I
that?
installed Antergos Cinnamon, and I experienced the same thing. And I don't know if that had to do with Arch or just the way it was implemented or what, but and I installed it to a solid state drive, and yet there was just a lag when you opened up the menu, when you opened up a application or the file manager. Yeah, there was definitely some lag to it. Now, I just installed Linux Mint 18 again, and I got no lag whatsoever. And I don't know why that is, but
Right.
um, now I'm not going to say that Cinnamon is a light desktop because it's not. Okay, it takes up I think it was running at 1.8 gigabytes of RAM. It's
Hmm.
not a light desktop, but like I said before, if you have the resources for it, I personally don't mind that it's taking that up because that's why I have it.
Right.
Otherwise, I could just run with 1 gigabyte of RAM and that would be it. I have 8, so I can use 8 if I need it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I mean Nemo is a good file manager, and it is probably right underneath Dolphin. It's not
Yep.
as good as Dolphin, obviously, but I mean it is right underneath Dolphin with uh compatibility with stability. Like I have never had an issue, and I can't say that with the other file managers. I had never have never had an issue with Nemo either crashing or copying files wrong or anything like that. It has a lot of settings to customize it, and yeah, it's pretty nice. So I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised to be on Cinnamon again.
Well, and now with this new applet that you're talking about, I'm going to have to load it up and check it out. I mean, it is such a well-rounded. It feels mature. Cinnamon feels mature. But at the same time, it feels modern. It doesn't feel out of date. And I'm like you. Yeah, it's great to keep an eye on RAM usage and things like that. But if you've got enough there and it runs good for you, then be happy.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
the applets are like the the good thing about Cinnamon, and they're also the bad thing. Okay, because they can be hit or miss. So, for example, if you go into the applets to install more applets, um, you're basically, if you type in menu in the available applets online, you're going to get probably 12, 13 different ones, but 99% of them don't work or
ah,
crash Cinnamon when you try to use it. So the applets are good when they work, but like I said, a lot of them, which I don't understand why Mint doesn't kind of like corrugate the applets center where they take out the ones that are not compatible anymore or haven't been updated. I mean, some of them haven't been updated since 2012.
mm,
So, and they're still showing up in there. So that's what maybe confuses some people. And that's what I was having trouble with, where I would install all these applets and Cinnamon would crash constantly. And it may not crash as soon as you go to put it on, but it will crash it later. And so it's a good thing to have the applets, but you just got to be careful which ones you put on because they don't all work.
is there a rating system with the applets?
Well, there is a rating system, and there is like numbers, like some number ratings, basically. But like I said, there's not nothing to say, hey, this hasn't been worked on in a year. There's nothing to that effect. So
Okay.
that's where you run into problems. So yeah, it might have been
Okay.
rated great. Like I would have rated Configurable Menu as the top applet ever made, but it hasn't been updated in 3 years.
Ah, well, do you feel like Cinnamon is being updated and worked on at a pace and level that it should be?
Well, to be honest with you, I think if now, and I'll say what you had said before. I really have nothing to back this up with. This is just my take on it. But it doesn't seem to me that Mint is trying to add new features to Cinnamon. Um, they seem to be busy with making all the distros and making Mint compatible. They're working on the X apps and all that stuff. So Cinnamon has not had like these brand new, like, okay, for example, like Mate came out, you have all these new features, and it's not quite like that, but it's also a stable, good operating system that it's still very nice even with nothing new at the moment. So
Right.
I'm sure they're going to be working on new stuff. It's just that lately it doesn't seem like they've had a lot of new features added to Cinnamon.
Well,
So
and you know, sometimes I'm not going to knock developers there. I mean, sometimes they're focused on stability and security and all of those things that you know, that sometimes you just tend to overlook because it's just there doing what it's supposed to do anyway. You know, it's the old squeaky wheel thing.
well,
And
that's the thing that coming out of me is the wanting to see new features like you see in Budgie and all that stuff, but you can't always have that because, like you
right,
said, you do have to concentrate on stability and stuff. So, yeah, I understand that. I'm not trying to knock them or anything. I'm just you want to like you look at Budgie and you look at Mate and you look at all these other ones. They're coming out with new features, so you're looking for new features from Cinnamon, and you know, like you said, not to knock the developers, they're working on making sure it's running right. So.
yeah, absolutely. And you have to be careful. You know, in the Linux community, you can fan the flames pretty quickly. If you'll remember when GNOME 3 came on the scene, man, there was lots of anger and disappointment and people abandoning GNOME because they didn't like those radical changes that were made, you
Right.
know?
Yep. Yeah,
And
no.
so,
That makes
so
it bad to you have to have some good vision in order to add new features.
yeah, and it's tough, you know, because, you know, there could be three people on a team and with like minds and they get together and say, yeah, this sounds like a great idea to me. And everyone's in agreement. And then they launch it. And, you know, my goodness, you'd think the dam broke, you know?
You're right. Well, I just want to say one more thing about that SynXP Start menu. It is the best menu out there. The only thing about it is that you do have to manually install it. Now, it
Okay.
isn't hard to do. All you got to do is download it, extract it, you rename the folder, and you drop it in the folder where it's supposed to be. So it's not like it's a hard install. It's just you do have to manually do that. Now, there is another operating system. I think it's called Farron OS, and
Yes.
that has the SynXP Start menu installed by default, and also like a couple different items with it, like a theme changer, and it has all of the. I think it has the Boomerang project themes built into it. So that if you're not interested in manually installing it, you can always check out Farron OS.
Oh, wow. And I think our buddy Sudo Reboot just did a video on Farron OS, I believe. So we'll have to check out his channel on that.
Another distro hopper.
Another distro hopper. You know, and that's so funny about Sudo. I was talking to him one day. He's like, "No, I've been on." You know, he was on Peppermint forever,
Yeah.
and then he had some issues there with Peppermint, so he's been hopping a little bit lately.
Well, to be honest with you, and that's part of the reason why you switch from distro to distro is because things run right for a while, and then they kind of like one thing goes wrong and you deal with it, but then another thing goes wrong. So then it makes you want to check out what else is out there to see, is this going to happen over here? So yeah, that causes our distro hopperness.
Well, it's our distro. Man, I've got to write that one down.
Distro hopperness. That's a big daddyism.
So I saw you at the Distro Hoppers Anonymous meeting the other night. I saw that you were too afraid to stand up and admit that you had a problem. So maybe at the next meeting you'll be able to. I'll be there to support you, man. I will.
I've been on Neon now. It's been what, 2 whole weeks since I've been on Neon. So I'm doing pretty good.
Well, if you listen, here's the way Distro Hoppers Anonymous works. If you in the, say 10, 11 o'clock at night, you start feeling those urges to, pop in another distro and you're wanting to fight it back, then you just call me and I'm there to help talk you through the process of why you don't want to do that, of why you just want to stay with your current distro that
Look, man, you're feeding the problem. These videos alone are feeding the habit of installing new distros.
So are you saying that we are we're like part of this anonymous Distro Hoppers Anonymous group? However, in the background, we're just making it easy for us to not solve our own problem. Is that what I'm hearing?
You're an enabler, is what I'm saying.
An enabler. Well, man, I'll tell you what. And I'll go ahead and jump in first. I threw you a hard
Yeah,
ball
it's your
earlier.
turn.
So, let's say out of the three to decide right now which desktop that I would run between GNOME, Budgie, and Cinnamon. Pick would be Cinnamon.
I will have to agree with you there. I see GNOME as being really good with the extensions, and I look at Budgie, and I'm really excited about what they're going to have to offer because it's already looking pretty good. But if I had my choice right now, it would have to be Cinnamon. Cinnamon is a solid OS. It is a good desktop environment. Well, I should say Mint is the solid OS, and it offers that customization, the personalization, and the Cinnamon itself is probably, well, I don't know. I want to say it's my second favorite operating system, but it would, between the three, it definitely would be Cinnamon.
You know what? We may be changing our tune in a month, the way things change in Linux. And you know what? That's the fun of Linux. That's why I love Linux. I know that's part of why. And for I got to add this. There are a group of people out there who want to make sure that we let people know it's GNU Linux or GNU Linux.
Yep.
So for those of you who want to make sure we know that, and we appreciate it as well. So, you know, that it, Rocco, is that it's changing, it's growing, it's advancing. You know, there could be a whole, you know, who knows? There could be a mishmash between Cinnamon and Deepin one day. You never know.
Yep. Well, but that's the great thing about Linux is you know, for example, the SynXP Start menu, that is one where, you know, somebody took and forked it and made it really nice. And that's a perfect example of what's great about Linux.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly right. Was something else that came to mind that I was going to
Well, let me
tell you what this.
thank Cinnamon for showing me the SynXP Start menu because it wasn't because I found it on my own. One of the guys over at GitHub showed it to me, and I tried it, and it was awesome. So I just want to thank him for that.
If you would send me the link to that, I'll put that in the video notes for everyone because
Yep.
I know, like myself, I'll try it, and I know that other viewers out there will definitely want to try it.
Well, I'm going to be posting up a video on it just itself of how to install it and how to customize it. So
cool. Well, man, I've enjoyed this, and you know, maybe we've got other desktop environments out there for sure.
You never know.
You never know. That's well, you know what?
Hey,
I know what to say. I know what we need to try this. So we should like take Peppermint. So the Peppermint OS and put the Cinnamon desktop on it. Gosh, and we'll use Mint theming. So we'll have all these spices and herbs and everything almost in the distro.
Well, who knows? Maybe we can take the different distros that are out there, like, you know, between the different GNOME versions and do something on them, or the different Cinnamon versions. Like, for example, we talked about the differences in the Cinnamon between Mint and, you know, other ones, Antergos. So maybe we can do something on that too.
Hey, that's interesting. I like it. I like it. Well, man, enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch up. And I will look for your video on that extension one more time. Is
SynXP Start menu.
Very good. Well, we'll look for that video.
All right, man. Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, buddy. See you.